What's going on, folks? Happy Wednesday night. We are back, episode number 182 of the Club and Sub podcast. Tonight, we're going to talk about a card that is falling apart at the seams.
We had another as we speak.
Yeah. We literally just had Jolton Luderbach pull out against Scaro Magomedov. Antonio Truley is in. This has been the last couple cards and the next few. I mean, it seems like the cancellations are really all over the place. So, yeah, it's been interesting. Guys, if you like the show, drop a like, subscribe. Again, I haven't fixed the overlay yet, but we're brought to you guys by Fight Numbers. They have the live odds screen. They're the only group with the live odds screen. Updates every 10 seconds. I get the shows all of your domestics, all of your overseas books. It's got everything in real time. Amazing site. They also have a bunch of good cappers you can follow over there. They got Ozzy, they got Pepe, they have Evan, and Chad is their intern over there, insofar as I know. And they have John Kelly's DFS projections, which are about as good as it gets. So, and trust me, I do play DFS, and I can confirm John Kelly's are great. And if you want a 30% discount off there on your first month, use the promo code CLUB, C-L-U-B, if you can't spell. Promo code CLUB, fightnumbers.com. Check it out, guys. Great stuff. Anyway, so real quick, let's talk about last week. Decent card for me. It was a very weird and erratic card for me, but I won 4.76 units. Really smashed it on the props, on the prop side of things. On the money lines, I had Alex Perez for a unit. I don't know, man. I feel, and I'll let you give your thoughts on it too when you're up, but I've seen a lot of people bet Perez talking about him being value, and like maybe he was, but I also kind of think it's hard to really say he was value when the only time he got taken down, we got taken down on one takedown attempt and got his back taken instantly. Even, the stop.
Did win the first round, though. They did win the first round. So I feel like in that itself, he looked good early. I know you could say maybe, there's not enough footage to say, it was indicative of the whole fight, but to what we saw, I feel like it was value.
I think if they stayed standing, he'd have won the fight. But the problem is the one time he got taken down, he gave up a body triangle. So it's like even in that moment where he got hurt and the fight ended, it's like an unfortunate ending to the fight. But Tyro was about to have 2 minutes on his back with a full body triangle locked in. So it's like we don't even know if he would have necessarily survived. What's going on, guys? What's going on, Rich? Joe? We got Josh in the chat. Uncle Tom.
Yeah, the volume is looking good on your hair, John, tonight.
Rich
Can't lie on that comment.
The only thing I like about me. You don't like this tan, baby? Come on.
Look at that piano. Look at that piano in the background. It's looking beautiful too.
Yeah, my new office. But yeah, I mean, look, that was my view of it. I didn't have I didn't feel strongly about it. I had a unit on Lucas Almeida at plus 178, which was pretty good. I also had 0.33 units on his decision which was plus 600, which was nice. I had a 1.25 units on Josh Quinlan. I thought Quinlan won the fight, but I mean, he did fuck all too, though, if we're being honest. So it's like, I'm not going to scream robbery about it. I did think he won, but he didn't do shit. Gabriela Fernandez I had. Kind of surprised it was a split, but again, I don't think I had like tremendous value on it either. She was clearly getting cooked. I did think she overpaced herself early in that fight, but like, I think she loses round 3 at a pretty consistent clip, maybe even more consistent than she wins round 1. So I don't feel very strongly about it. I had Julia Plastri for a unit. Honestly, like, I guess if Julia Plastri is going for takedowns from the jump, it probably is huge value. But given, how one-sided the striking was, I kind of didn't expect that. I expected her to engage a lot harder in the striking. So I feel while the bet may have had some value on it, I don't think my read of the fight was particularly great. And then I had Heastand to win by sub in round 2 at plus 2,800 for 0.1 units. That lost. I had Brady Heastand to win in round 3 at plus 3,500 for 0.1 units. That won. That was a very, very nice cash.
That funded your new office.
Yeah, paid for my new office. And then I had 0.05 unit stabs on Perez sub 3, 4, and 5. But yeah, good night for me. How did you do?
Only had 2 plays, so I won on Knutson money line. I had minus 180 to win a unit, and then I guess we could talk about this a little bit. I had the over 2.5 rounds in the main event. I thought it was trending toward the right way, but again, like we talked about a little bit, first time Perez really got his back taken to the ground. It kind of looked like the over could have been cooked, but
yeah,
tough to really tell again.
Dude, Josh saying, look at the full blowout, bro. You have not seen me with a blowout. You should have seen me when I was 22. Many moons ago. But yeah, so we'll jump into it. We got a noon card. I'm going to be at the beach, probably watching on my phone down there, having some cocktails,
Nice.
mimosa. It's going to be excellent. And yeah, we'll get into it. They're in Saudi Arabia. So obviously there are no women fights given the
Oh, damn. What a shame.
the restrictions on women in Saudi Arabia.
They can just fight in long sleeves, right? Unbelievable.
Anyway, moving on. We start with the first fight of the night. We got Long Zhao taking on Chan Ho Lee. It's basically an LFA fight. It's the road to the UFC finals. Current price, Long Zhao minus 112. Come back on Chan Ho Lee. What are your thoughts here, Lags?
It'll be a fun fight to open the card. And if I had to pick a side, I would side with the Long Zhao side just because, you know, even though in his tape he does seem like he's not a great defensive wrestler, he has good scramble ability. He makes up for it in that. And I think he's the better striker of the two. To me, Chan Ho Lee seems very grapple reliant. Like the moments we see him striking, it's not that it's not great, but it's just there's not enough substance for me to be like confident in him. So to me, at a pick 'em price, I would lean more so the Long Zhao side.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fucking mess of a fight, if we're being honest. I mean, Chan Ho Lee absolutely sucks, in my opinion. The guy is just, he just seems kind of like, he's a grappler who's kind of a noodle. Like, that's not really your ideal, build for a grappler. You want, if someone's going to be pressing clinch takedowns, I want them to be fairly physically strong, and he is not. And on the other side, you have Long Zhao, who's the much more experienced fighter, and I actually think he's a decent counter grappler, and I think he's much stronger. So it's like, why am I not betting Long Zhao? Maybe I will eventually, but I don't really know, man. Like, it's kind of weird because I'm pretty confident Chan Ho Lee is not going to dominate in the grappling, but Long Zhao gives up a lot of positions himself. He does, outside of like round 3 of his last fight, he doesn't tend to throw a lot of volume. Very easy to get off on the feet. So while I don't think he's going to have terribly many issues, keeping the fight upright and or reversing position and getting on top of Chan Ho Lee, I do worry it's going to be one of those fights where there's just a lot of scrambles and not a lot of strikes thrown, and the fight's playing like very, very close. You couple that with the fact that I don't think Zhao hits hard at all, nor do I think Chan Ho Lee hits hard at all. And I kind of feel like, I don't know, I kind of feel like it has close fight written all over it. Ozzy said, who's the better prospect? I mean, I don't think either is young, are they? Lee's 30. How old is Long Zhao? 28. I mean, so Zhao, I would say he's far more experienced, right? I think he's shown he at least has like real physicality for, the weight class, at least a degree of it. And I don't think Lee does. Yeah, I mean, I could only bet Zhao here. I actually think, what's the over 2.5 here?
It's like minus 200, I think.
I actually think that's not bad. And GTD at minus 165 is not bad. I really, Vera said long as 26. Yeah, so I mean, he's obviously the better prospect of the two. Plus, he's from China. I don't think the UFC cares terribly much about Korea. So yeah, I lean the Zhao side. I lean over in GTD more, though, I think. Moving on, we have Magomed Gaziasulov taking on Brenton Ribero. Gaziasulov, big favorite here. He is currently minus 310. Come back on Ribero, plus 260. What are your thoughts here, Lex?
I don't think much of Ribero at all. Like, to me, he just seems like a big, wild swinger on the feet. Doesn't have much cardio. Has pretty much only power. So I feel like Gaziasulov should be fine striking. Like, seems like a very good striker. I think he could also take the fight to the ground as well. Shouldn't have much issue with that. I think Ribero plays guard off his back. Should be an easy fight for him, but I don't think he really needs to grapple. But again, would be the least path of resistance.
I kind of think it's probably dog or pass if you wanted to bet on a money line side here, just because, I mean, I tend to agree Gadzi looks like the better striker of the two, but he's really fought like absolutely no one. And he's actually giving away a fair amount of reach on the feet here to Ribero. Ribero's got an 81-inch reach. Gadzi 75.5-inch reach. I don't strongly disagree with anything that you said. I think Gadzi's the better striker technically. He's obviously the better wrestler of the two. But I mean, with that said, my suspicion is they're probably just going to bang. And, Ribero is glass, but he also hits really hard for a guy who is glass. So, I mean, do you really want to get in front of like him getting around one finish at minus 310? I don't really think so. I don't really want to bet Ribero though, because I feel Godzi's going to finish him in the first round more often than not. Or at least finish him more often than not.
Just to chime in real quick, I feel like the best stab if you're going to make a stab on the Ribero side is probably just the KO1 and not get real cute with anything else. And not to say like, I mean, that is cute with it in itself. I don't have. Give me one sec.
Ribero round 1 is plus 800, so it's probably a pretty big number. I'll tell you right now, plus 1200. It's not bad actually. I mean, I agree with you. I don't have any interest in playing the Ribero money line here. I think Gadzi's going to win though. I'd be a little surprised if Ribero won, but I mean, I could see it. So. We'll see. Yeah, Pepe said Gadzi juice is fine. I'm inclined. I wouldn't lay it, but I mean, I think he's a justified large favorite. Moving on, we got very good fight here. Very, very cool fight. Rich is calling this his mush of the week. We got Muin Gafferov, minus 160. He's taking on Kyung-Ho Kang. Come back on Kang, plus 140. I was interested in Gafferov at like minus 110. And then I woke up Monday morning and it was minus 135, and there went my interest in it. I guess I actually think Kang's a better fighter than Gafferov, like technically just about everything, little cleaner on the feet, long jab, good kicks. I think in the wrestling, Gafferov maybe a bit more physicality, but I think he'll struggle to take Kang down and could get counter grappled here pretty easily. I lean to the Gafferov side just because, Kang's 35 years old, man. Like the guy's old. He's got tall man's defense. 36 years old. Yeah. He's old. He's got tall man's defense. Gafferov's 28. Gafferov's coming off 2 losses, one of which was to John Castaneda, who we just saw beat Kang pretty comprehensively. One to Said Nurmagomedov, like pretty good guys to like start off your career with. So it's like one of those things where I worry the market maybe undervaluing Gafferov just because he's 0-2, and even though those 2 losses were against pretty stiff competition. And Gafferov, whatever you want to say about him, the guy is good at finishing guys. He hits pretty hard. He's very, very, very aggressive. And Kang's the kind of guy, if Kang can have a beautiful fight with you where he can keep you on the outside and, bland jabs, slow kicks, get his game going, he's pretty good. But if you can get inside his reach, he is there to be absolutely cracked on the inside. And I just have a feeling, I really didn't like the Ronnie Yaya look for him. I thought he looked pretty bad against Castaneda, to be honest. He seemed to slow pretty dramatically. Even the Quinones fight, I bet him in that fight. And before the knockout, he got wobbled pretty bad in that fight. I kind of think Kang's overdue for it to be KO'd. But with all of that said, I do think Kang does some things that pose problems for Gafferov. Like I mentioned, he can counter grapple. Obviously, he's got a giant cardio edge here. He's got a big XP edge. That check hook he throws, I notice Gafferov tends to blitz the pocket with his head all the way down, and that check hook Kang throws every time people come in, I think he's going to find a home with for a fair amount. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think it's an interesting fight. I think it's fairly close. I think Gafferov, based on, kind of age and athleticism, being the smallest of favorites, makes some sense here. But I can't. If Gafferov doesn't finish him, I would really not be feeling very good about Gafferov juice like 8 minutes into this fight. And that's like the other thing that I wanted to point out is like Gafferov, yeah, he outperformed his cardio against Castaneda to a large degree, and I think that might be coloring some of his line movement, to be honest. But we've seen guys have outlier performances all the time in the UFC. And would it shock you if it turns out Gafferov's back to just being the gassy fuck he's always been after 5 minutes? It wouldn't shock me. So, yeah, I mean, at the line now, I lean Kang. I do think Gafferov, like minus 125 range, makes some sense, though. What do you think?
Super interesting fight, like you had mentioned already. And I've been a Kyung-Ho Kang guy. I mean, backing him. I backed him against Castaneda. I backed him, like you said, in the Quinones fight. But to me, the guy's always on thin margins. I mean, I backed him against Castaneda thinking that he wasn't going to get grappled a ton. I didn't think the wrestling of Castaneda was going to be much of an issue, but obviously that didn't turn out being the case. But I do think Gafferov can land takedowns here. And yeah, I mean, my only issue with him landing takedowns though is I just feel like he is fairly sloppy in the grappling. So like Kang could maybe find a submission himself like in the later rounds, but I don't know. I think Muin should be fine personally.
Yeah, fair enough. I think it's an interesting fight. It's probably one of the more exciting fights on the slate, I think. Moving on, Renat Fakhretdinov. He's taking on Nicholas Dolby. Current price, Fakhretdinov minus 350. Comeback on Dolby plus 285. Dolby Cash is a big dog in his last fight. Do you think there's value on him again here, Legs?
I do not, because like you had mentioned earlier with guys that having a nice physical base for wrestling and going after takedowns a lot, well, Renat has that build, has that base exactly to a T. And to me, I feel like his wrestling should be enough here against Dolby. I don't think Dolby's going to have much space to breathe in the wrestling. I mean, worse guys have tried to grapple him and have had success, and I think Renat's a much better grappler. So, yeah, I think the line's more than justified. I mean, maybe round 3 is a little bit of a scare like it was the last time where he did get 10-8, but I don't even think – I mean, Zaleski hits and is, I should say, more of a violent finisher than Dolby. I mean, Dolby's not. Dolby's not that to me.
Patty said fight doesn't go unders. We're not solid finisher. I agree with you completely, Lags, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm not like uber high on Renat versus a lot of the market. I think the guy's, I don't want to say he's a fraud, but I think he's got some like bigger holes than what the market thinks about his game. But in this fight, I mean, dude, every guy who's wanted to take Nicholas Dolby down has taken him down. Gabriel Bonfim is not anywhere near the level Renat did. It took him down and got the dominant position very easily. Bonfim's just a fucking spaz who was just chasing a finish as hard as he could for 7 minutes and died. So yeah, I mean, I think Renat gets takedowns here. I mean, dude, Claudio Silva at 40 years old got 8 minutes of control against this guy. You know, this is. Yeah, unless Renat just like goes into this I'm gonna strike to kill mode thing. I really don't think Dolby can keep this upright, and I don't think he's going to have an easy time getting up. You know, he hasn't fought many really good wrestlers either in his entire career. And even if they struck, like Renat's got the pop to knock him out, and I don't really. That's the other thing for me. Like Dolby has one career knockdown, and it was last fight against a half-dead Gabriel Bonfim, like with 5 seconds left before he finished the fight. You know, the guy can't bust a grape. Not much of a submission grappler. Not a very good wrestler, not very good on bottom, taking on a pretty good wrestler with a pretty good top game. I think Renat probably wipes him out. I honestly kind of agreed with Pepe's take. Oh, sorry, Dogfather's take. Wow, they both have the brown and the letter in their name there. That really threw me for a loop there. I really agree with the Dogfather's take. I think Renat can get him out of there in this fight. Dolby's fucking old, man. And I love Dolby, but this just seems like a terrible, terrible stylistic matchup for him. I mean, look, there's a reason Gabriel Bonfim was like minus 500 against this guy, you know? So moving on, though, we got Muhammad Naimov taking on Felipe Lima. Current price, we got Naimov minus 125, comeback on Lima plus 105. I bet Naimov at minus 120 to win 2 units. I don't think Lima is, well, I actually think he's a decent prospect. Good volume, hits pretty hard for bantamweight, you know, very, very aggressive, very, very young. I think he's got like a pretty high upside in the UFC. The thing is, like I mentioned, he's a good prospect for bantamweight, but he's not fighting at bantamweight. He is fighting at featherweight for this fight on very short notice against a guy in Naimov who's had a full camp. He's fighting in Saudi Arabia. Is a Muslim. He is in Naimov. I think you have a guy who's a very, very good athlete. You know, Naimov in general, I think we both parlayed Nathaniel Wood against him in his last fight, which is not so great. But Naimov is kind of like, I think he kind of sucks at some shit, to be honest. Like, I don't think he's a good striker, but he's explosive. You know, he hits very, very hard. He's very fast. He's very explosive. And he's actually proven to be a pretty good wrestler and incredibly physically strong. Like going into like that last fight, I felt Wood's probably a better grappler. Like even if he gets taken down, he's probably going to work up, no problem. I didn't think he was just going to get physically hossed the way Naimov did. And like Nathaniel Wood's a very good fighter. He is a much better fighter than what Felipe Lima is at this point in his career. And it's like I found that very impressive. And even going back in the tape a bit and watching his fight with Malarkey, you know, Naimov's debut, he took up a weight class. And Malarkey was trying to like bully him physically and wasn't having an easy time doing it. Like, I just think Naimov's a super, super strong guy, and he's a pretty good wrestler. And I don't think Lima is a very good defensive wrestler. Now, maybe he can catch him in something and sub him off the bottom. Like Lima's sub could honestly be a decent look because he does seem to have some jiu-jitsu. But I tend to think Nemov can get on top and control him and have kind of a similar fight to the Wood fight here. Even on the feet, I mean, Nemov's really explosive and hits really hard, and Lima is there to be hit. Like he's never been hit by someone like Nemov before. So I just don't see how he can only be 55%. It's a short notice fight up a weight class. His best performance, Lima, is Jonas Magard in his last fight, Octagon. But prior to that, he hadn't really fought anybody at all in his career to date. And Nemov's a guy who's been having success in the UFC, who's a wrestler, who's on a full camp, fighting in his weight class against a smaller guy. But I think Nemov should be about like minus 170 here. What are your thoughts?
So I haven't played Nemov yet, but I am likely going to join you as well for a small play. I mean, talking first about the Wood fight, now I think there were a lot of fouls that probably weren't called against him, both grabbing the cage and grabbing the inside of the glove. But again, digress here. I agree with you completely in terms of the strength and the wrestling that he's going to have here over Lima. And on top of that, I think striking, he's got more power on the feet. So to me, again, at a pick 'em price, I think it's solid.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on, we got Nasrat Haqparast taking on Jared Flash Gordon. Current price on Haqparast is minus 240. Comeback on Gordon plus 205. What are your thoughts here, Lags?
Well, John, I will start off with, I know you owe me some shots over the past couple pods, 2 shots, but you can make it up with this fight because I know we're going to have a little bit of disagreement because I know you have a bet on Jared Gordon. Not that I have a bet on Nasrat by any means, but more so I think Nasrat in the 65%, 70% range to me seems fair. Like, I feel like on the feet, I think he's going to be way faster, and I think his power is going to be way more prevalent. I think it goes 15 minutes. I expect him to land the bigger shots, and I expect him, again, to potentially even wobble Jared.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I did bet Gordon at plus 210. I think a lot. I mean, Nasrat's he's an okay hitter, but I don't think he's got like crazy power or anything. And I think some of that is probably colored by his most recent fights where it's like the guy fought Jamie Malarkey, dust. Landon Canone is just not a good fighter. The fight prior to that, John McDessie, old, like a grandpa basically, dude's 40 years old, didn't have great durability to begin with. Like if you go through Nasrat's career, it's kind of crazy. So it's like the dude wins those 3 fights, gets absolutely plowed by Bobby Green and Dan Hooker. The 2 fights prior to that, he has a close striking decision with short notice Rafa Garcia, way worse striker than Jared Gordon. Beats Alexander Munoz, who didn't fight again for like 6 years, gets knocked out by Drew Dober, and then beat a bunch of like lower tier guys. Like he hasn't done well whenever he stepped up. I agree he's faster. I agree he hits harder. I don't think Jared has the best chin, but like I keep hearing like Jared Gordon needs to get the grappling going. And like, don't get me wrong, I would love if he gets the grappling going. Like I think if he gets Nasrat down, Nasrat's not getting up, but I don't think it's a super likely path for him. Like maybe he can get a takedown, but he's not. His entries are a bit too slow and he's not a great wrestler. But I mean, you look at him on the feet, man, like Jared's a decent striker, man. He's a good counter boxer. You know, you go back to his fight with Bobby Green and you want to talk about speed. Now, I know that fight ended from a headbutt towards the end of the first round, but Bobby's faster than Nasrat is. Every time Bobby went southpaw, he was struggling and getting countered by Jared in that fight. Jared did a good job feinting, kind of keeping him at range and was outpointing him up until the headbutt happened. And so, like, I've seen Jared fight cleverly before against much faster guys. Danny Chavez, another one. He cleanly outstruck Danny Chavez when everybody was talking about how he needed takedowns in that fight. And so now he's fighting Nasrat, and it's like a similar dynamic. And he's got a good 1-2, very fast. He hits reasonably hard, but he's got nothing beyond that. He's a shit kicker. He has no diversity to his boxing. He's very, very easy to counter. It's like, okay, maybe he comes out here and he just blasts Jared on the feet, knocks him out. Okay. But if he doesn't knock him out, I'd legitimately be stunned if he runs away with the fight. I just don't see that happening. No one's really run away with a fight from a fight with Jared in his whole career on the feet on minutes. So I'd expect minutes to be pretty close. I think he does have some small grappling upside here. And at the end of the day, I don't think you can really put Nasrat KO past like 25%. So like to me, Nasrat 60% on age, speed, physical intangibles, I get. But, I mean, Jared's a better fighter than Nasrat Haqparast is, you know, in the aggregate. Like, a much better fighter, in my opinion anyway. I just feel it's going to be a competitive fight. Maybe Nazareth gets off on him. Maybe he doesn't. You want a shot bet at 2-1? We can do it.
Yep,
Just
2-1.
text me before we come on here so I can go pick the
Oh,
liquor.
we can do that. So if he does lose, you now
I'll take 4 on show next week.
No. If he wins, it's 2 apiece now. But if Jared loses, you have 3 because you owe me 2 already.
All right, I could do that. That's fine. We can fuck with that. I could fuck with that. Fair. That's fine. But yeah, I like Jared here. Moving on, Johnny Walker, Volkan Ozdemir. Current price, we got Walker. Well, pick him, dead pick him, -110 aside. What do you think, your legs?
So I feel like there's a lot of moving pieces in this fight. Like before I even tape the fight, I'm like, this is probably an easy Volkan bet. Like guys, much more back class, much more experience. In general, I think he's a better fighter of the two. But like looking into it more, it's like I don't think Volkan has a great chin. Not that Walker has a great chin himself, but I feel like this is probably just going to stay standing, and it's just going to be a highly volatile fight where whoever probably lands first ends up finding a finish. To me, like I want to bet Volkan, but I just feel like it's a very volatile fight.
I honestly lean the other side. I understand the Volkan takes because of Johnny Walker's chin. Obviously, I bet Anthony Smith because of Johnny Walker's chin, so that didn't go great. But it's kind of weird. Like from a market perspective, it's like I got to bet Volkan at -150 against Bogdan Guskov a fight ago. The fact that the market thought he was -150 with Bogdan Guskov, and now those same bettors think he's pick 'em here with Walker. It's kind of a weird approach from the market, in my opinion. Stylistically, look, I mean, Volkan obviously can knock him out. But Volkan's not like a super aggressive striker anymore, man. Like he likes to kind of play the patty cake game at distance and just counter. He does, but that's my point. Like Walker is way fucking bigger than Volkan is. Like he's 4 inches taller. He's got like 6 inches of reach on him. I think their leg kicks are probably commensurate, but I think Walker's going to have an easy time finding kicking range than Volkan will. Now, if Volkan bites the mouthpiece and gets in a pocket with him, obviously, he can knock Walker out, like no doubt about it. But like, I don't think there's a grappling path available to Volkan in this fight. And so to get inside, he's putting himself in harm's way of a lot of elbows and knees and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel Volkan maybe has a small edge in finishing equity, maybe even moderate, but I just kind of think if it goes 15, Walker's pretty likely to land a lot more strikes and measure distance a lot more. So we'll see. Pepe said I put too much data in market prices. Maybe. It's possible. It's getting more efficient, though. I'll tell you that. But anyway, moving on. We have got Shara Magomedov and no longer fighting Joelton Luderbach, which is unfortunate. He is now fighting Antonio Truley. I think someone said this line just went up. Let me just pull up that online right now. Let's see. I don't see it. All right. Oh, no, here it is. Wow. Magomedov -500, Truley plus or -700, Truley plus 500. I honestly okay. I mean, Truley seems like he sucks. He's fought like nobody, right? But dude, Shara Magomedov is like one of the worst grapplers I've ever seen. Like legitimately AIDS. The guy has no wrestling and he can't get off his back at all. He's just throws elbows. Like he's a very good kicker. He's like Kmart Chris Gutierrez, though. Good kicker, good body kicks, good leg kicks, no hands at all, no head movement really. Can't wrestle, can't get off his back. I was probably going to bet Luderbach against him, to be honest with you.
I was tempted.
Yeah. Am I going to bet Truley? Probably not, because there's just so much missing data on the Truley side of things. But, I mean, would I be shocked if Truley got him down and took his back and submitted him? Not really. I'm telling you, this guy is a fucking horrendous grappler. Like, horrendous. He'll probably win this, honestly, just because Truley, I mean, dude hasn't fought in like 4 years or whatever. Used to fight at 170, lost to Diego Lima down there. So it's hard to have too much faith in him. But I wouldn't be shocked at anybody who's a decent grappler submitting this guy. Literally. Yeah, this guy is a complete fucking fraud. Like, I am like quite certain about it. Like Bruno Silva, who I bet in that fight, if the dude had like, it was weird. Like he was getting him down so easily, but like he didn't want to fight once he got him down. He was kind of just like digging his head into Magomedov's chest and just avoided getting up kicked and elbowed. But like Bruno landed fine on the feet whenever he'd pressure him. He got takedowns easy. If Bruno Silva's taking you down easy and controlling you easy, that's a very, very sign. So yeah, minus 700 is probably crazy. And if it keeps going, I will probably poke Antonio Truley, even though he is probably horrible. What do you think, Legs?
I mean, to give some credence to Truley, though, he was at least scheduled to fight Ikram. So like he was,
yeah, training.
Should be, yeah, at least training. Like he's not coming straight off the couch. So
I think he's married to Dern, isn't he?
Married, I don't know. Boyfriend, I believe.
Okay, I'm not sure, but
either way. But yeah, I mean, I don't really disagree with anything you're saying. Again, it's really just a short notice. That's.
So you think? So who are you picking?
I think Scaro is going to win, but I don't think there's any value on the line.
Yeah, fair. I mean, if you're laying minus 700 on Scaro,
right?
I have a piece of oceanfront property in Nevada I'd like to sell you.
Yes.
Anyway, moving on. Kelvin Gastelum taking on Daniel Rodriguez. Banger of a fight, to be honest. Kelvin, decent size favorite, minus 240. Comeback on Daniel Rodriguez, plus 205. What are your thoughts here?
It is a bit of a banger of a fight, but to be honest with you, I'm trusting the durability of both of these guys, and I'm betting the over 2.5 rounds, and I got it at minus 230 in a parlay. Yeah. I think this goes the distance. That's personally, cold. I know. And it's I get it, given the fight style. But to me, I think Kelvin's probably going to win a decision here. I think he's the better striker of the two. And personally, I think D-Rod's the more washed of the two. I think Kelvin also can mix in some wrestling here too. I mean, I don't think D-Rod's defensive wrestling is great at all. So I think Kelvin probably wins just the ho-hum decision.
So I guess here's where I disagree with you. I think for the price to be right, it has to assume Kelvin is like hurting him bad and putting him in danger to finish here. Because like otherwise, How do you get to minus 250? Because D-Rod's a better volume striker. He's not giving up any. He's way older, but he's not giving up any height or reach. He throws more volume. I mean, dude, this guy like went 50-50 with the Leech like 2 years ago. And like Leech is, I think, a better technical striker than Kelvin is, to be honest. My biggest concern, because like I want to bet D-Rod, but like my biggest concern with him is he's just washed. I mean, I don't care too much about the Gary fight, but he also just looked very, very slow coming out in that fight. He looked very slow the fight before against Neil Magny. Now, I don't care that he lost to Magny because he's not a great grappler, and Magny just mugging him in the grappling isn't really a shock. But I mean, he's almost 38 years old, so like that concerns me a lot. And Kelvin,
not to come in and cut you off real quick though, John, and not that Kelvin's not. I'm not trying to say like Kelvin's taking it super seriously, but like I feel like D-Rod is not at all taking this seriously at the later part of his career. Whereas like Kelvin, like I feel like he's at least in a better spot.
The crazy thing is though, when you go back to Kelvin's career, so like he beat Chris Curtis last year, but obviously if he doesn't headbutt him,
I bet him in that spot.
Me too.
I completely agree. Yeah,
he loses the fight. Prior to that, his last win before that was Ian Heinisch in 2021, where he needed to grapple to win that fight hard. Prior to that, he robbed Jacare in Brazil in 2018. That was his last win, an old-ass Jacare. Prior to that, his last win before that was knocking out Michael Bisping in his retirement fight on 2 weeks' notice in China. Bisping came from being finished by George St. Pierre to fighting Kelvin Gastelum 2 weeks later and getting knocked out in China. And then prior to that, his last one was Tim Kennedy in 2016. Like, it's crazy because Kelvin obviously has fought like a very, very high level of competition, but he really hasn't fared well in the aggregate against that high level of competition,
No, but to be fair, I don't think D-Rod is near that high level competition.
No, he's not.
Cannonier, Whittaker, I mean.
No, nowhere. But I would say D-Rod at his best is probably commensurate level to Chris Curtis, in my opinion. I just question whether he's at his best, but like to me, the entire fight comes down to how washed or not washed is D-Rod. If he's washed, I mean, Kelvin could hurt him a bunch or throw him or knock him out. And if he's not I think D-Rod's probably like pick him in this fight. Like so am I betting D-Rod? No, I haven't. We needed to blow out a good bit further. I'm like, I'm just like trying to avoid like taking shots on these guys that we just don't know where they are anymore. But I honestly kind of expect it could play out pretty competitively here. Like if the over that you like is right, I think the Gastelum price basically has to be wrong.
Be wrong. Yeah.
Conversely, for the Gastelum price to be right, I kind of think the under has to be the side. So we'll see what happens. I think it's an exciting fight, though. It really, I mean, they're going to throw down. I think. Although, who knows? I mean, maybe you'll be right.
Well, I was going to say, you're going to bet a little sprinkle on D-Rod decision.
On D-Rod decision, what's the price?
I don't have fight odds in front of me right now. Sorry about that.
Fucking lags here.
I know. Sorry about that.
Prop and not giving me the goddamn
the prop
number.
and not odds. I know. I'm sorry. Literally, Wi-Fi killing on me right here. Sorry.
Fuck it. It's plus 280. No, it's plus 285.
Oh.
That's fucking horrible.
No,
that is absolutely horrible. Yeah. Josh said new discipline, John. Yeah, trying to get rid of some leaks in my game. Yep. I think D-Rod's obviously the side though, from a money line perspective. Like it's D-Rod or pass. I might just wait and look live for it and see how he looks the first couple minutes. Like, is he wearing the power okay? Because Kelvin does tend to have most of his success be front loaded. But yeah, I mean, laying minus 240 on Kelvin Gastelum in the year of our Lord 2024 is just not the way. Moving on though. This is a good fight. This is one of the better fights on the card if it extends at all. We got Sergey Pavlovich taking on Alexander Volkov. Current price, Pavlovich minus 235, comeback on Volkov plus 200. I don't even give a shit about what Volkov said about their training sessions. There's probably a lesson in there. I don't know, but I don't really care that much about it. I do think, though, Pavlovich is a pretty rough stylistic matchup for him, though. Like, to me, the path towards Volkov being value here is likely him grappling successfully. I just kind of question how likely that is. I think he'll try. I just don't know how likely he is to actually get Pavlovich down. He's not that good on it, fast on his entries. He's not a great wrestler. Like, he's not taking down good fighters for the most part, Alexander Volkov, you know? Like, he's a better technical kickboxer, obviously, than Pavlovich. But I think a guy like Pavlovich with his kind of speed, first of all, the speed gap is giant here. The other thing is, though, I mean, Volkov's longer than, like, literally everybody he fights. Dude's got an 80-inch reach. He's 6'7". Pavlovich has an 84-inch reach, though. I mean, the guy's knuckles are literally scraping on the floor. Pepe said gun to my head over or under 1.5. I honestly kind of think the under is like, which feels like the square thing to say because, like, obviously they're probably overpricing unders at this point on Pavlovich because of how many of his fights have ended under. Almost certainly, actually, I would say.
See, what I would say to that point, I think it's tough to say that because his under 1.5 is only like minus 155. Most of his under 1.5s are like.
Yeah, but how many guys have? Well, that's true, but also because Volkov's been
because of Volkov
fairly early. Yeah.
I
mean, Aspinall is like the only guy in like ever to finish him in under 1.5. Actually, no, Minikov did too. But yeah, I mean, that's really it. True story. 6'8" here.
Oh,
I
would say you might be taller than like Ilir Latifi.
Yeah, but I just think Pavlovich. Look, I think if Volkov can survive the storm, he's going to probably win the fight, right? I think that's pretty obvious. But Pavlovich is a lot faster. The dude. People like to ascribe knockouts to being random all the time, and Pavlovich is not the guy who has random knockouts. The guy hits like a tank. He comes forward. He throws in volume, and he throws very, very hard. I don't really think Volkov's going to have an easy time. Like, he's going to need his teeps and his knees up the middle to be working. But even then, like I mentioned, you know, Pav's got a bigger reach than him. I just think it's a really, really tough fight for Volkov here. I think Pavlovich is going to be able to force this into a phone booth. And I just don't really like Volkov's chances of winning that kind of fight. With that said, if he's still there after a round, I'm obviously going to bet him live. I just think it's going to be very, very tough sledding. And one last thing, even with respect to that and the live betting him, we really don't know what Pavlovich's cardio is like. The guy's 3-0 in decisions. He's been 5 rounds before. We don't know. I mean, it's very possible the guy's cardio is fine. What do you think?
Well, so first talking about like the over under. Now, I guess I should say, firstly, I parlayed Pavlovich. That's the other half of that parlay at plus
Okay.
106. So, first of all, I don't think the under is a good bet, and I would rather target just Pav money line because kind of what we were talking about with if the fight does extend, I don't really see like Pavlovich having a massive decline in this style of fight. Like I
Yeah.
think he can have success in round 2, have success in round 3. And not that I disagree with you in terms of Volkov grappling, but I think his bigger strategy he should be going for is those teeps, those knees up the middle. Like if he just targets the
Yeah.
body a ton with those teep kicks up the middle, I think that would drain the cardio a ton. But I think Pavlovich probably does knock him out early. I think again, under 1.5 probably hits, but I think Pav money line at minus 230, a slightly worse price, is the better option.
Fair enough. Main event of the evening, we got Robert Whittaker, who has had a full camp. Or actually, I guess Ikram had a full camp as well.
Against Truley, though. So
yeah. But we have Robert Whittaker. He's minus 158, taking on Ikram Aliskerov, who's filling in for Hamzat Chimaev. He's plus 138. Honestly, I feel like everybody's on Rob, and it feels fucking square. But I have Rob to win a unit.
This feels like this feels like the mush of the week, and I haven't even bet Rob.
It does.
Yeah, go ahead.
It does. I literally I bet him around minus 130. To win a unit.
That's a great number.
Half.
Yeah.
I have bad vibes about it just because of how many people are on that side of it, But at the same time, it's just like, dude, Ikram Aliskerov, the guy knocked out Phil Hawes and he knocked out Warley Alves up a weight class. Like, who fucking cares? Like, you go back to his regional tape, he does some decent stuff. He's a good wrestler, but not great. He's not on Chimaev's level at all. He hits hard. Seems to be a decent kickboxer. But he is hittable himself. He can get stuck getting out volumed. And honestly, he's got a decently lengthy history of slowing down in fights past like 7 or 8 minutes. I mean, like 3 fights ago, this guy was going life and death with Nishan Burnell, who's a regional journeyman in Eagle FC. So he's fighting a guy in Whittaker who, everybody talks about Whittaker being chinny, but like Whittaker's the 2 men to defeat Whittaker in the last 10 years, literally, are the current champion and Israel Adesanya. No one else has beaten him over that period of time. Whittaker is good at everything, decent counter grappler, very, very fast, good jab, good counter striking, good at getting in and out. Pretty much every guy he's fought that isn't Dricus or Israel Adesanya, he's absolutely mollywopped like on the numbers. I just look at it and I feel like Ikram's, I don't think he's drawing dead to a knockout. Like, that would be a stupid thing to say, but like I think he needs to get a KO here in all likelihood to win this fight. I don't think Kimura is from side control. They're going to be working against Robert Whittaker. Like, that would be pretty surprising to me. And I think the later it goes, it's going to be bad for him. On top of that, you factor in the macro here. Take out the level of competition, the experience, the tape. Dude, this guy literally had his fight canceled on fucking Thursday last week and then had a turnaround from Las Vegas, fly 20 hours to Saudi Arabia, cut weight again. That cannot be fucking good. Like, he was getting ready to fight Antonio Trocoli, and now he's fighting Robert Whittaker in the main event here. I guess you could make some narrative argument for him being a Muslim, but like I really think, I think Rob should be like minus 160, minus 165 here. I have enough concerns about, which is getting where the price is getting to now. I have enough concerns about the current state of Rob's chin and the amount of damage he's taken that like, I'm not like, Rob could be minus 200 or 300, but only one guy is likely to look minus 200 here, in my opinion. And that's Whittaker.
Yeah.
So yeah, I bet him around minus 130. Probably wouldn't bet him now. What do you think, Lags?
Yeah. I mean, similar thoughts as well. And not to echo you on the whole KO or bust thing, but I kind of think the same thing because I just think prolonged fight for Ikram, I don't think he's having the grappling success. 3, 4, 5. I mean, Rob's shown solid defensive wrestling skills.
Yeah.
Cardio-wise, again, it's one way in terms of Whittaker's side. I know there's been a lot of takes of, Rob's cardio hasn't looked great recently, this and that. I mean, what are we saying? Ikram has good cardio? Like, this is his first 5-round fight, and he's slowed in the fight.
Rob's got way better cardio. It's not even close.
We've seen Ikram slow in the couple 3-round fights that he's actually gone to a decision. So yeah. I think Rob price is fine. Might even be a little wide. Like, he even could be a little wider. But I have similar spooky thoughts as you. Spooky
But
vibes
even
are
with that
still-
in mind, with those same mushed thoughts that we have,
Yep.
like I almost think Ikram's power is getting too much credit right now. Like, let's just like look
Well,
at
yeah,
the
he fought
aggregate
Phil
of his
Hall.
career.
Phil fought Phil Hollis. Super
He's
chinny.
so hold on, he's 15-1, right?
Yep.
Of those 15 wins, he only has 6 knockouts, which like isn't bad by any means, but like someone who
like
is
12.
this like, nuclear middleweight, he's not would be knocking out more people than that. And yeah, he knocked out Phil Hawes, and in that fight, he was kind of getting paced before he knocked him out. And then he knocked out Fat Worley Alves up a weight class, who was never that durable to begin with. I just feel like the market's ascribing a lot of power to Aliskerov, while there's not really a lot of data to back that up past his last 2 fights. And I feel like betting on the guy who's 1-1 in his last 2, but historically has, been one of the best fighters in the division's history against a guy who's only got 2 UFC fights and they're both first round KOs. Historically, backing the guy like Whittaker is the plus EV spot. We'll see. I could be wrong. I can't look at this kind of step up in competition and not bet the Rob side here. It's just, we've seen it too many times where in hindsight, it was like, oh my God, he looked like minus 400, I don't expect that.
The one that comes to mind, and obviously he did end up losing the first round, but was Strickland and Magomedov. He was just, we knew he was a gas bag pre-fight. The guy went for, hell on water pretty much in that first round, I should say, blew his cardio and then gets finished in that second round.
It is very similar, honestly. It's a very, very similar dynamic to that. And I could see that happening too. Like, I think Ikram could give him fits the first couple rounds of this fight, honestly. And I think Ikram potentially could have big wrestling success early in this fight. I just don't think he's going to be able to do that past
2 rounds. To me, it's 2 rounds.
Unless Rob just totally... I am a bit disconcerted at how Rob performed against Strickus on bottom. That kind of spooked me a bit. But unless Rob just goes full on like fish mode here, I just don't really...
To me, I think the physicality, the difference between Ikram and DDP, though, like Ikram's still pretty like physically built, but like DDP, I think is much more physical.
Yeah, and DDP was kind of being creative with him on the ground. He kept threatening Anacondas and Darces to keep him there. Like every time Rob would try to like get to a hip and get up, like that's not. If Ikram's going to sub you, he's trying to get to the Kimura, and I don't think he's going to be able to like power Kimura Rob. It would, well, he could, I guess, but it would be very, very surprising to me if it happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, have you taken, I haven't looked too hard at props this week yet. Bozer, have you, is there anything that interests you?
I have not. Let me look through the card again real quick here. What I was talking about, or I should say, I should have mentioned it in the fight when we were talking about it earlier, but I think if anything on the Kyung Ho Kang side, the sub 2, sub 3 might not be bad looks, but
that's interesting. I don't think he's going to sub. I don't think he's likely to sub Gafferov though. I kind of think KO is more likely. But I don't think that's going to, no, I was about to say maybe GTD, but that's minus 150. Not that great for a guy like against a guy like Gafferov.
What do you think though? Prop wise, anything?
Not really. I have to go through it all. I'm going to go through it all probably tomorrow. We'll figure it out. But yeah, guys, thanks for coming out tonight. We got another show next week, UFC 303, big card. Obviously, Connor no longer on it, but honestly, the main card's pretty fun. There's actually a lot of fun fights on that card. It actually is a pretty good card on paper, other than Martin Budai and Andrei Arlovsky. Not sure that'll be, but I am excited.
But to Rich's point earlier in the podcast, we will have a guest for you.
Who is it?
We
don't know who it is. Oh, I thought you were about to like drop breaking news on here.
No, I'm not going to drop breaking news right now. Come on, John. I got to save that for a week. We can. Come on, John.
But yeah, guys, I am going to put timestamps on it tonight, FYI. So the person who keeps messaging timestamp warrior in the comments, you can actually get the timestamps here.
I've been seeing that
guy. But yeah, thanks for coming out tonight. We're going to go through next week. I'm going to probably do a PFL show either tomorrow or Friday morning. I'll probably run through both of them, honestly, at the same time. Yeah. That's all I got, though. Lags, anything you want to add here?
Nope. Noon card. It's going to be great.
Noon card. And Bellator at noon also. We got Friday night PFL and then Bellator at 11 a.m., UFC at noon. It's like MMA all sandwiched into like a 16-hour period. It's going to be a beautiful thing. Clear your schedules. It's going to be fun. I'm excited for it. Guys, drop a like, subscribe. fightnumbers.com. Check it out. Great cappers, great product, great head of the company, John Kelly. Again, promo code CLUB, 30% off your first month. And that'll do it for us. As usual, I'm John. You can find me at MMA Fox, Lags at Danny_Lags. Thanks a lot, boys. Take it easy. We'll see you next week. Peace.